Well, we've been called to a special meeting with the Chief Minister about the story that's gone national. It could get even bigger than that, and it's not a good news story whatsoever. This is something that I suppose you thought was dead and buried many years ago. This is to do with this lesbian couple who have been refused permission or from the landlord to take on a lease of a property. Yeah. What do you make of this?
Well, frankly, I was horrified to hear this story again. Horrified from the point of view, first of all, of the great distress this must have caused the two young ladies who applied for the apartment, but also horrified from the point of view that we've been through all this before. Some 20 years ago, I was very much in the forefront of bringing in changes to decriminalise homosexuality. At that time, there was tremendous pressure on the Isle of Man from UK politicians, UK media. The Isle of Man got a bad press everywhere and really was quite rightly vilified for it. We have next month G8 coming up, which will be discussing the future of small jurisdictions like the Isle of Man. Our enemies, our critics are already lining up to take pot shots at us for a story like this to break, which would enable them then to reflect back and regurgitate all the bad history of the Isle of Man is a very, very difficult position for the Isle of Man to be in.
But let's put this in perspective. With this guy, has he done anything wrong? I mean, the guy who wanted to rent it. Is there a law that stops him, or is he okay to do what he's doing?
He is, at the moment, okay to do what he's doing. I fully accept that. But I had hoped that the argument in favour of the respect of the human rights of individuals and of the acceptability now of gay life on the Isle of Man was such that you wouldn't necessarily need legislation to oblige people to do this.
But he's saying it's an issue with his church and a moral stance. He has nothing he can do about it. As I understand it, it's the church's point of view on this, and he's tied by it.
I recognise that, but then I would question strongly the position of the church in the first place. It's a very strange type of God that they worship, I think, that promotes discrimination against two people who love each other, who simply want somewhere to live. Where does that appear in the Bible that that sort of discrimination should take place? So I really have strong disagreements with this church, the Independent Methodists, on their attitude on this altogether.
I mean, you've already alluded to it. This is going to run and run. People will see this on Google every time they look for the Isle of Man, and old things will just get churned up. It's put the Isle of Man sort of forward thinking back a bit, I guess. It
has the potential to damage the promotion of the Isle of Man as an open, compassionate, caring society, inclusive of all minorities. We've worked hard over the years to bring in legislation to ensure that. I do believe we have a much more tolerant community and Manx society than we probably ever had. But instances like this do not help the situation at all. And it's a sad reflection that admittedly, it is only a very, very small pocket, a single instance at this stage, but it shows that this prejudice still does exist.
But I know we're having a UK-based newsroom. I've worked for the companies concerned. I know this is a story that they'd be all over, and they are all over it. And you're being interviewed by the BBC on the Sunday politics programme. There's a good bet I put £5 on it. You're probably going to be asked about this sort of question.
The UK media have already shown interest in it. It's gone viral on many other news outlets in the UK. Once more, the Isle of Man's name has been dragged into the spotlight as being backward, anti-gay, anti-human rights, all the usual stuff which we fought years to get rid of. And as someone who's lived through that period, I can tell you that this isn't idle talk on my part. The Isle of Man suffered enormously for 10, 15 years before it was able to start to shake off this. It has the potential to be very, very damaging.
Well, I heard from a source on Friday about this, in fact, within government, and it was about to go. And did you get involved at all? Did you try and firefight behind the scenes before this did escalate?
I only heard this late on Friday afternoon, and I've not really been able to find out the details about it until this morning. I have taken action. I've spoken to the estate agents and I've been in touch with the girls themselves.
What have you told them?
That this behaviour is absolutely unacceptable, regardless of whether we have the law in place or not. And to be fair to the estate agents, they are just as unhappy about the situation as I am. They have an absolute policy of no discrimination, which is as it should be. And they have been put in a very difficult position, I think, by the bigoted attitude of the church officials.
Bigoted? You are going that far?
Absolutely. I don't see any other description for it.
Because I think everyone remembers there's a case in the UK of two guys who wanted to share in a B&B, wasn't it?
That's right.
That story just went completely neutral on everybody, didn't it?
Yes, I mean, that was right across the media for a long period, and I think ended up in the courts at the end of it. It shows what might only be a small incident, how it can be blown up in the present environment, and how unacceptable these sort of attitudes are these days. The gay community has every right to be treated as equals with everyone else. They simply want to get on with their lives. If they're in loving partnerships, why shouldn't they be able to live in a home in the same way as everyone else?
The problem is, though, in the UK, you just said they went to the courts. Over here, it's quite legal as it stands.
Yes, but I have been talking to the legal draftsman today to identify where we are with the Equalities Bill. There is an Equalities Bill in the pipeline waiting to come through. It's probably taken a bit longer than it might have, simply because there's a huge weight of legislation building up that our people are working on. And of course, given the fact that we do have a more tolerant society, there didn't seem to be quite the same level of urgency to bring in this, because it is just the way people live these days. So
let's supposing that law was in place, would you be even able to tell the church that they couldn't discriminate?
Everybody will be treated the same way in an Equalities Bill. That's the whole point of an Equalities Bill. And it's not just for the gay community, it's right across the piece. The strength of any community, I believe, is reflected on the way it looks after its minorities. And an Equalities Bill will do just that. And
this landlord, you haven't talked to him directly yet?
Not yet, no.
Are you going to?
That might be the case.
And do you think you'll be able to persuade him to change his mind?
No.
No?
No, I don't think so. I think the feedback I've had so far was very firm that the church is committed to this way of action. And I understand anyway now that the church officials have been back in touch with the estate agent, and it's now been removed from the rental market, and they are now going to sell the house, which of course throws up an interesting conundrum, that if a lesbian couple then decided to buy the house, would the church turn down an offer of that nature? So it's an interesting situation.
There'll be people watching this, though, that say people should have the right to what they do with their own property.
Yes, and equally there needs to be a non-discriminatory policy towards people who wish to lead their lives the way they wish, and where you have two people in a loving relationship wanting to set up home together, they should be encouraged and allowed to do so in peace.